Right. So 2024 is one of the busiest year in the history of elections. There are 60 countries conducting elections this year alone. 19 out of these 60 countries are in the African region. And I'm interested in the 19 countries conducting elections in Africa. The Africa elections started with Comoros on the 14th of January. Mali was supposed to have had its elections on the 4th of February, but the election was postponed. And today, as we speak, Senegal is busy with its national election. There are other countries that are going to come through with their elections before the close of the year. But Sudan is going to be the country to close the election year in Africa, because the elections of Sudan is going to take effect in December. But you see, African voters over the years seem to have had enough with empty promises of politicians. And most of them are even questioning the benefit and necessity of democracy. And if you ask people on the street, you get the sense or the impression that democracy have actually failed to deliver political freedom and economic prosperity. I think this is one topic that will need an attention in terms of a discussion. But one thing we all need to focus on is election disinformation and chaos in the African diaspora before the voting days. You see, what the layman or the innocent person on the street do not know, or let me say, do not give attention to, is the fact that disinformation leading to chaos are carried out by certain specific interest groups just to push a certain narrative and political agenda. You see, whether we like it or not, such a community of people always exists in the run-up to elections. They always are within us. And each group pushes their versions of what they call their own reality. They push these realities very loud in order to get the media convinced, and also to convince the public to vote for them. So political parties amplify messages of fear and divisions just to mobilize voters. The messages are always centered around, a little bit of fear and a little bit of something that would divide. Some will say the divide and conquer narrative, or the divide and rule narrative. Right. You see, the availability of social media in recent times provides the means to send out such messages to people through various platforms. And most of these messages are presented in very sensitive manner, whereas others are blatant fake news, to tell you the truth. But poor media literacy rate in our societies have made it possible for people to easily buy into these fake news and political narratives and agendas that are not, in actual fact, the true reflection of realities. They are propagandas. And this oftentimes leads to chaos and unwarranted attacks and insult to people. Across Africa, when you analyze all the 19 countries that are conducting election, and you look at the messages of politicians and political parties, I can assure you that you are sure to have political parties campaigns centered around very similar things. And all the similar things that these political parties and individuals center their messages on are sensitive. they are sensitive. They are sensitive in such that the possibility of those messages leading to chaos are always high. And one of those messages that I'm going to highlight is ethnicity. Go around and check the messages that politicians and political parties are sending out. And you tell me whether ethnicity is not an issue of discussion. And tell me why ethnicity should be an issue of discussion in politics of our African continent. We have greater problems that needs the attention of these politicians. Why approach ethnicity? Your guess is as good as mine. You see, the other thing they center on is undermining the faith in the electoral commission and the electoral system. Even before the election is conducted, politicians and political parties begin to, punch holes into the efficacy and efficiency of the electoral system and the commission itself. Then there are others who uses the anti-foreigner sentiment because they know it will draw the attention of a certain population that they are so much interested in. And once the attention of those particular populations are, drawn to them, then they will be guaranteed of a certain vote. Then in countries where you have white population, you have the issue of white monopoly capital. Then the last one that politicians and political parties focuses on is attacks on personalities of individuals that are contesting elections and positions. So a person's life will then be taken and chopped into pieces, and something is identified of that person and used to undermine the person, just so people fall out with that particular person. And if the person belongs to the political party, so they do it so that that particular message that will be sent out concerning the individual will be a dent on the political party that the person is affiliated to. You see, these are very easy setup plans that are designed and planted through some well-orchestrated propaganda machinery into various communities in different countries for voters to digest. And it is to the ignorant of the ordinary voter. We do not know that these things are planned. We see these things as reality because the plan of the politician is to make sure that we see that which they preach as reality, and we are always at their mercy. You see, after an extensive media coverage on those subject matters, people easily buy the concept as true reality. And before you know, it's already time for elections. And what do we see? Those politicians whose propaganda worked well ends up in office. So, in actual sense, there is no time for proper campaigns on real problems facing the people of the continent. And to know whether this is true or not, just cast your mind back to previous election years and do a forensic analysis of the messages. You will see that the messages that you hear now are the same messages that you heard before. So every election year, they go for the same things and they bring it onto the table again. They sensitize it. And you see, the most unfortunate thing is that the ordinary voter do not have the time to be able to analyze these messages very well Because if we can sit back and analyze some of the languages and the messages and the direction of the messages and the source of those messages, we will not be lured by politicians for our votes. We will not be lured. I think we are at a point in our lives where information is vast and access to information is really very easy than before. And so if we want to have or experience changes in our systems or in our lives, then we need to begin to analyze issues and not take things as they are presented to us by politicians. We take those things that they sell to us, and 2 years or a year into office, we end up attacking them, the politicians, for doing nothing. But a year before the next election, they come back to us with the same message, and we buy the message, and they get voted into power. And then after, we go back again and begin to insult them for not doing their job. But we are the ones who ends up voting for these people every now and then. So the problem of the continent cannot be attributed to politicians alone, but the ordinary voters who goes to the pool to give the politicians the mandate also have a piece of the blame to swallow. Thank you.